Another busy Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here. Patrick Reusse with me as usual. Patrick, we're talking about the rundown. I think we might even not get to everything today just because
That's
everything's
right.
there's so much. But we'll certainly talk Gopher football. We'll get a little soccer talk, hockey, maybe Wolves. We're obviously going to start though, Patrick, with the Vikings. Managed to win last night. 21-13 is your final. They squeeze it out over the Colts. Much better second half than the first half, which I guess was the case 2 years ago when they were down
Yes.
33 nothing and came back
Yeah.
to win. Not
Yes.
quite as dramatic this year, but some, maybe some things to like, and their flaws and the things they do well were both on display Sunday.
Well, you look at the numbers, it should have been a blowout. I mean, they had twice as many yards. They had 20 some more plays. They had, I was just looking at the numbers again. It was no contest. I mean, Indianapolis didn't move the ball at all, really. Joe Flacco looked like he was 70 years
Oh,
old.
geez.
He
Yeah.
was terrible. And yet they somehow managed to get to halftime down 7-0, which was amazing. And then I don't know if it was adjustments. I don't think O'Connell's going to go in and scream and holler and to fire him up at halftime, whatever happened at halftime. But they finally came out and woke up. How can you go scoreless against Indianapolis when you got Jefferson on your team and Aaron Jones on your team and everybody? It's damn near impossible, I think, at home. At home again, now they're pretty good up front. I'll say that for the Colts. So you got 2, 3 guys up front, but it's damn near impossible to go
Well, yeah.
scoreless for a half against that team. God, holy cow, that was something.
Yeah. Well,
Darnold has shown us the other side. That's for sure.
yes.
He'll turn it over. That's for sure. So
Well, and that was
yeah,
how they did it, right? They two turnovers
yeah,
in the first half and two missed field goals finally for the young
yes.
kicker, who sounds like he's got a little bit of an ailment, so that's a troubling sign too. But
Yes, yeah, they were showing them. Did they ever tell us what it was? It looked like it might have been a hamstring or something
yeah,
where
he
wherever
was
they were putting that wrap on his leg. But
right.
that would, I mean, he was when he misses a what was it, a 31 yarder or
Yeah, it was
something
a
like
short one in the
that.
30s, and he missed that 53 yarder that just didn't look right in the
Hmm.
early on
Yeah,
too. So
yeah,
that's a bad development. I'm sure he'll be
yes.
fine eventually, but he's been one of their most reliable players. Obviously, he hadn't missed a kick all year, but that's how you go scoreless: two turnovers and two missed field goals.
Yeah,
But they were moving the
that's
ball
true.
just fine.
Yeah, they did, and I never watching it. I never thought they were in trouble. Did you? I couldn't believe they could keep playing, keep avoiding points
Yeah,
like they did. And they were just better than that other team. So I thought eventually they would have to win the game, and they did. And they're looking at they're looking good. I mean, they're 6-2, and the schedule's easy here for 2, 3 more weeks. So it's there's if they get beat in the next 3 weeks, it'll be an upset, right? So
yeah. I mean, they got three road games, but it's Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Chicago, and then they come home for Arizona. And Arizona's not a pushover anymore. They're
no,
playing pretty well offensively, but you would like to see them win three of those four, I would think. Like,
yes,
something's going to happen. You might stumble. You got three road games, but they should be the favored team, I would think, in all of those games,
yeah.
based on
So
their
you're if
personnel.
you lose one, you're 9-3. You're in the playoffs, basically.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to avoid the playoffs. So yeah, I don't know. The number one event to me that took place yesterday is they finally turned loose Turner, and
Yes.
man, is he fast! He's unbelievable. And they basically just split him out so far wide that the Colts couldn't get anybody out there to block him. And man, I mean, he might not have figured out what he's doing yet, but what a talent he's.
Oh, yeah.
And when they drafted him, I said, they're getting I'm not a draft guy at all, but just from what I saw, when I saw him play for Alabama, I thought they were getting the best defensive player in the draft, and then he's not playing. I couldn't figure it out, but they finally turned him loose again, and he was great when you're trying to block him 1-on-1 outside, you got no chance.
Well, and that's what, Andrew Kramer and Ben Gessling and I were talking about that last week on the Access Vikings podcast, just talking about why hasn't he played? And some of it is that kind of like O'Connell's offensive system, like Flores' defensive system is very complicated. And if you don't trust that he's going to be able to do all the things, drop in coverage, things like that, you might not play him that much. However, we were also saying this guy is so talented. You got to find a role for him. Just
Yes.
let him go run at the quarterback. Do the thing you're
Yes.
good at. And I think they kind of found that role for him last night.
Yeah, that's what they did. But it's kind of like to jump out away and then back for a minute. It's kind of like Finchie not playing any of his kids, right? Because
Yes.
he'd rather play Joe Ingles, and he finally played Minot instead of Joe Ingles last night. But anyway, yeah, I mean, you got to get him on the field. He's a monster. So
Yes.
and if he makes two great plays a game, that makes up for anything else. But yeah, it was hard work, but it was there was never a moment when they weren't the best team on the field.
No.
So
The only
that was you know
I did worry that they might lose though, just because it was one of those games, right? Like they're down
yeah
7-0 at halftime. You're like, how the hell is this happening? But
yeah
it's, you still only got a half left. If you play another half like that, you might lose like
yes, right
14-10 or something. And then you're like, man, that's just like, feels like you gave away the game. But I do like that they were aggressive to the end, right? Like they get the ball
yeah
back, they're up 14-10, and you're like, okay, what are they going to do with it? And they threw it plenty on that last drive, including the touchdown to Oliver that gets to 21-10 and pretty much ices the game. Like instead of just, hoping they bleed the clock or like play field position and punt and pin him deep and give him another chance. Like, yeah, Flacco, you mentioned Flacco. He did not look like he wanted to be there. I joked on Twitter that he looked like a guy, every time they showed him on the sidelines, he looked like a guy in the lobby of a job interview who didn't want to get the position. He just looked like he didn't want to be there. He was just like,
yeah
what's going on here? I don't like this. And they sacked him like 3 times on that last desperation drive just to add insult to injury. But they did pull it out, but it was going sideways enough that it was like, are they going to blow this game? But they didn't. And maybe that's a difference for this year's team versus some of the other Vikings teams that have collapsed over the years. Like, I joked 2016. It was starting to feel like 2016, right? Where they started 5 and
yeah
0 and
right
then it just, turned on them.
yeah Cam what's our official view of Cam Robinson? How did he play at
He
left
played
tackle?
well.
What did
I
they
thought
say? They
he
thought
was
he was
good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pressures that they were getting were mostly up the middle, not him. I think they showed us, I don't know what his final numbers were, but I think they had like quite a few pass blocking snaps. I think he maybe gave up 2 pressures or 2 hurries and like 35 pass blocking snaps. So I think that's pretty good. It's
What is
not
the
quite
deal?
Pepsi.
It's a fourth round draft choice is worth $7.5 million to you. I don't Jacksonville. What are they? I mean, they're paying his whole salary to get maybe a fourth rounder, might be a
Yeah,
fifth rounder. You're giving up is that worth $7.5 million for a fourth rounder?
that's a
I
good
maybe
question.
maybe I don't know, but
Yeah,
what
I don't know either. I don't know how that works, but
what
it's
do
yeah.
these
What the
guys have left in the draft for next year? First round and third round, maybe something like
Well,
that.
but yeah, that was a 2026.
Oh, okay.
They have a first and 2 fifths. That's what they
So
have next year. But they're
that's what they have left, and then they gave away a fourth for the following year. I
yes, but
gotta say
they're
though,
probably gonna get a third from the Cousins compensatory pick too.
okay,
We just don't
okay,
know that yet.
I gotta say I'm all in on this as opposed to the Spielman system,
Oh
which
yeah.
is which is I could get sixth and seventh rounders who are the same as undrafted free agents, but I can get them cheaper because I don't have to
Yes.
bid against anybody. So I'm going to trade for all those guys. I'd rather have, you know, trade. I'd trade for guys who can make a difference for you and not hoard a bunch of idiot sixth and seventh round draft choices.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on what these guys are trying to do right
Yes.
here. So,
Well, they got booed off the field last night too. Did you? I don't know if
ooh,
you. Yeah, I
yeah,
think you said at halftime, and I think we're seeing obviously what happens when you start 5-0 and then lose 2 games and then have a stinker at halftime of a game when everybody's had a chance to drink all day.
Yeah, I was
But,
going to say
if
that has a lot to do. The 7, 10, 15
yes.
kickoff had a lot to do with getting booed off the field. If it's noon, people aren't quite as liquored up as they are at 7 at night. So,
People are mad. They're like, their friends are like grousing about Sam Darnold. And I'm like, what do you expect from Sam Darnold? He's having a
yes,
pretty good year.
yes.
He's got 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, like
Well,
1900,
yesterday,
1900 passing yards. Like you saw the full spectrum of him yesterday. We're like three
yeah,
turnovers because the fumble and two interceptions, but three touchdown passes, some big time throws. Like that is the full Sam Darnold experience.
yesterday his quarterback rating with 2 interceptions was 107.
Yes,
I
and
just
his
looked it up. So,
Yeah,
I
his
mean,
QBR was still over 50. Like he's having a very fine year, more than you
and
could have expected.
he's a pretty good athlete. Made that run there that they when they needed that first
Right.
down. So he's that's right. I mean, this is it. And you can say that J.J. McCarthy would be playing by now. We don't know that if that's true,
Right.
but this guy's more power to them
Hmm.
that they brought this guy in way before McCarthy got hurt because they knew they wanted to have a veteran
Yeah.
quarterback, and he's doing fine.
Yeah.
He's not quite as good as Case Keenum, but he's
No,
fine.
but
You
he's
know,
having a pretty good year. And yeah, I mean, maybe the final takeaway too is that, I think the defense, the Colts are not a high-powered offense, and I thought Flacco would do much better than he did because he's done better this year, but he looked his age last night. But the defense finally kind of got itself going again. That was the biggest thing because they only really gave up 6 points, and because they had the defensive touchdown, the Colts did, and then one of them was a really short field from another turnover. So and the last field goal was basically the desperation after the pass interference. So they played their best game in a long time, I would say, sure.
yeah. But the other thing is that I mean, Jonathan Taylor had some yards, but they didn't.
Hmm.
When they've been in trouble defensively is when the other team could run against them. I think
Yes.
when they pounded like Detroit pounded them with the run. And by the way, I can't believe it, but the Lions are good.
Oh
The
yeah,
Lions beat
they took it to
they
the
beat
Packers. Oh, that
took it.
Jordan
Yeah,
Love interception was terrible.
oh yeah.
He's I saw a stat that he's gotten intercepted at least once in every each of the last 7 games that he's played. Like some kind of Packers first Packers quarterback to do that in a long time. He's
Well,
maybe
they
and
did.
maybe playing him with a sore groin in a pouring rain wasn't the best
Yes,
idea.
yeah, right. That's true. They could have tried the other kid and had him run around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, if you're Lions, they've won in Minnesota and they've won in Green Bay. That pretty
Yeah.
much takes care of everything, doesn't it? So, and the Bears are hitting their stride now. So they're going to be terrible. So anyway, yeah, it's the Lions are. I can't believe it, but they're going to be really good, I guess.
Yeah.
And they can't afford many more injuries. But you know what?
No.
When you got an offensive line, you can do a lot of things. And
Yes.
of course, if the Vikings hit the jackpot here on Cam Robinson, and he's not going to be Darisaw, but if he can play
Yeah.
and be an asset, then they got a pretty good offensive line too.
Yeah, and he seemed energized too. He was. I saw him a few times running down, picking the guy up out of the pile. Sometimes, a couple times it was a receiver, but a lot of times they were lifting up Aaron Jones out of the pile, stuff like that. I'm sure when you get traded from Jacksonville to a playoff contender, there is a little spring in your step sometimes that makes you want to play a good half season and get one more contract too, right?
Yes,
He's a free agent at the end of the year. He's got financial incentive as well.
you won't get it here because they'll have
No,
Darisaw
no,
back
no, no.
next year,
But
but he'll get it someplace.
he'll get it
Yeah, he
somewhere. He'll get
will.
another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
Speaking of
left
offensive line
tackles.
play, Patrick, the Gophers' offensive line has been pretty good lately, and
Oof.
they paved the way for Darius Taylor to have a good day on the ground, for Brosmer to do enough in the second half. It's 4 wins in a row. They're 6-3. They're bowl eligible. I got to say that is the biggest surprise to me from where they started this year.
Well, they had a terrible North Carolina loss,
Yes.
which turned out to be a bad team, and then they Iowa. mashed them in the second half, but Iowa was pretty good. So yeah, I mean, and then Michigan, they played good, and might have Michigan's not that good this year. But let me say this about the Big Ten:
Hmm.
with the 18-team Big Ten, this might be the worst it's ever going to be. You got Oregon, you got uh, Ohio State, and maybe Penn State. They're coming in here in 2 weeks, and I would think the place will be. They'll go beat Rutgers. They'll be 7-3, and they'll be
Yeah.
pretty fired up for Penn State. And Penn State is not an explosive offense, so they
No.
can stay on the field with them. But you think you're ever going to have a year when Wisconsin is this lousy, Southern Cal is this lousy, UCLA is this lousy, Washington is this lousy. All these teams that are going to come in and make the league better stink. And
Yeah.
how about Nebraska getting
Oh,
it? Not only do they get it handed to them by Indiana, but they then lose it home to UCLA. They thought they were
oh,
going to be good this year,
yeah.
and they stink too. We don't play them this year, but I mean, we got this idea that the Big Ten is now a monster because it's got
Right.
18 teams. Well, not really. Indiana's eight. By the way, if I was Dan Barrero and Rick Bozich, I would fire a class action lawsuit that Indiana's not rated in the top 10 here. What the
Yeah.
hell's going
Yeah.
on? What's going on? This is unbelievable. They just
What do you
But
got to do?
Michigan State was just beat Iowa 2 weeks ago, right? 3 weeks ago, they beat Iowa, upset them, and they go into East Lansing and get the last 42 points or
Yeah. They're
something. They were
explosive.
down. They were down 10-0. Now they've played an easy schedule, but this just tells you how the Big Ten is right now. Indiana's a powerhouse, for goodness sakes.
Yes.
I don't get it. So
No, I don't get it
anyway,
either.
but hey, the Gophers, you're right. They Brosmer turned out to be a lot better than I thought he
Oh,
was going to be.
he's very good. Yeah. And
Especially late in games, he's been better as games have progressed. Not so much Saturday, but when they've had to do something late in the games, he's done it. And even from the first game against North Carolina, he was the same way. He was terrible for 3 quarters, and then in the fourth
yes.
quarter, if Kisich makes whatever his name is, Kisich, how
Yeah.
does he pronounce it? If he
Yeah.
makes the field goal, they win that game, and
Right.
they'd be looking really good if they'd won that game.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I mean, he's PJ's back. Too bad he wasn't this good last year when I said that the Big Ten West was a step above the UMAC at this time
Yes.
last year. That was a bad year to have a lousy year to
I
have a
think
lousy.
he would have liked to have this year's quarterback on last year's
Yes,
team.
yes.
And that's the next game too, right? It's the Rutgers game.
Rutgers, yeah,
We'll see if
the
Ethan
grudge
is still
match.
playing. He's not been great lately.
I don't know. He had one game that looked very familiar. He was I think 3 or 4 turnovers and 13 out of 35 or
Yeah.
something. They're bad. They're they're right. Early in the year they beat Howard and they beat
Right. Right.
they beat like a couple of nobodies.
Right.
And we were Rutgers like
Yeah. Did
yeah,
they
it
make a
looked good.
mistake? Did they make a
Yeah.
mistake giving up Calamackers? No,
And
it didn't.
when he had his first game, I was watching him, right? And I think he's
Yeah.
playing Howard or somebody, I don't know
Right.
who. And Matt Millen, who's an idiot, is bragging about him. So I was tweeting out this stuff,
Oh,
Matt
geez.
Millen's
Yeah.
quotes just to agitate
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Now they say, you were saying that Kelly Moss was great. I was the guy who called him sinker baller last year. So
Right.
I was bashing him before it was fashionable.
Right.
So yes, they would have a hard time losing. You'd have to go and not show up to lose to Rutgers, I would think,
Yeah.
next Saturday. So
And I think they'll be motivated. There's not just the Brosmer angle, there's all the coaches that have swapped sides there too. So
yes,
there'll
that's
be
right.
a lot of familiarity, but a lot of
But
anticipation as well.
by the way, that was Joe Rossi's defense that gave up 40 something to Indiana, right?
Yes.
He's
Yes.
Why did I could see him going to Michigan State, but the guys who go to Rutgers instead, that's what I can't figure out.
No,
So
I don't know.
yeah.
Hey, you
Anyway,
were
yeah, he's bounced back. So
yes.
PJ's bounced back. So now I'm hearing from all the PJ people.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
fine. They can talk. It's
well,
four in a
oh
row.
sure, yeah. What the
That's
heck?
it's
He's
all in
six and
good fun.
three. He's
All in
six
good
and
fun.
three. Yes,
And
yes.
and and for whatever we ever say about him, his teams, the thing I've always appreciated about his teams is they tend to get better as the year goes
Yes,
on.
most years, not so much
Not last
last year.
year,
Last
but
year was an off year, but you're
yes,
right.
generally.
They do get better, and that's not happening all over the league. When you look at
No,
Wisconsin and you look at Nebraska
no.
and some of those other places, they're getting. Wisconsin seems to be getting worse.
Yeah.
They're down on Luke Fickle in a hurry down there in Wisconsin. They're not, and you know what?
Hmm.
Uh, PJ went to New Hampshire to get his quarterback. Some of these, everybody's got a transfer quarterback,
Yeah.
and some of them, the guy in Wisconsin, Locke or something, he stinks. I
Yeah.
watched a little bit of him. He's terrible.
Hmm.
So they're all jumping into the transfer portal and bidding for these quarterbacks. It's like free agency, and when you get the wrong one, you're in trouble. So,
Yeah. Looks like the Gophers
and
got the right one this year. It'll
they
be
got the
interesting if they
right
go.
one somehow. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they go back there or if they think Lindsey is ready or any of these other guys are ready
Yeah,
next year.
well, they're supposed
Because
to be good recruits. The kid from
yeah,
California is a
kid from
freshman. He
California.
might be ready to play his second year. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of keeping him. I mean,
Yeah. That's true.
what are they
There's
going to
always
do
that.
when Ohio State offers Parrish $1 million?
That's
You
true
know,
too.
I mean, they're going
He's
to, he seems to be a loyal kid and he'll probably stay, but you're going to have to come up with some money for that kid. I
yes.
don't know what you're paying
Yes.
now, but he's a 250,000 minimum.
Yeah. For a safety, but
Yes.
he's worth it. He's worth
Well,
whatever.
you can play him on offense. You can play
Yeah.
him anywhere. He's just
Yeah.
what an athlete. What a
That was I was saying that to Randy last week, Randy Johnson. I was like, I'm just like trying to picture Coy Parrish playing all the high school teams in northern Minnesota at this
yes,
time last year. Like
yes, yes.
how is that fair? How is
I
that
don't know
fair?
how far they get. I don't think they got to the
I don't
prep bowl. Did
remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I
I
think
know he got beaten basketball by the kid from by Asuma, the Cherry, the Mountain
oh yeah,
no
Isaac.
Cherry beat him
Okay.
bloody in basketball, but he probably had more. But Perrich was he's a kid that he didn't come down here early because he wanted to play hoops. You got to like that too
Yeah.
with his buddies.
Yep.
So
And I think he wanted to I think didn't he was going to run track too, but then he got hurt. So, yeah,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
through three
that's right.
classic small town three sport athlete. I love it.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
You had a busy day. Was it Friday?
Friday
You went to
was
the Wild, but more than that.
well. I had my Sunday column. I was going to write this baseball column. A Halloween, I was going to
Uh-huh.
write a column about modern baseball and how many
Yeah,
problems it got. And then I watched the comeback,
right.
and then I started watching it on after Halloween was after the kids were gone from trick or treating about 8:30. Thought I'd watch 10 minutes. I watched all 3 hours. It's
Okay.
great. But the 0304
Red
Yankees Red
Sox.
Sox,
Yep.
and when it's done, I said, "All right, I do love baseball. The hell with it." So I
Yeah.
got up I was up at 4:30 and I started hacking that out about 5:30 or 6, and that took three and some hours, and then I did my little radio hit for Score North, and then
Yep.
then I went over and met the Hawaiians
That's
that were in
right.
town at Matt's for lunch. The 14 Hawaiians in town to watch the Vikings, big Viking fans.
Yep.
And I wrote that as I went to the X and wrote that
Oh,
as a
geez.
sidebar, and then covered the game and got out. And that was a long day for an old man. I'll
Yes. That's a
tell you,
long day for anybody. That's like 3 days. You worked three shifts in there. You had three
And you
things.
know what was the hardest part? I get out of the X at like 10:50, 11 o'clock, and I'm
Yeah.
driving back on 94, and we got the racers out. We
Yes.
got three or four of them chasing each other and through the traffic, and the weather's kind of, I think it was getting a little misty or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah. Yeah. It was Friday
and you
night.
got it. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's goofy, and that right. It, almost always at that time of night, if you're on 94, they're racing each other, and you got to watch out because and so I had to be on my top of my game driving too,
Right.
as well as after a long day. But it was fun. It was kind of fun. The Wild, man, whoa,
They're good.
the
Where
the
did this come
Russians.
from? It's all the same guys that were only okay last year.
Yeah, I know but Kaprizov is way better than he's ever been. I don't know if it's health or anything, but their first two lines are pretty active. Erickson acts a hell of a player, and
Yes, yes,
Boldy's
he
a
is.
hell of a player. They got them on one line. They got Kaprizov playing extra shifts. He's playing about 24 minutes
Yeah,
a
he
game,
is.
and he doesn't care. And then they got that, they still got Brodeen and Spurgeon's back there, and then they got the kid Faber,
Faber,
who's
yeah.
threw one in from the high
The slot.
above the slot there
Yep.
to make it to clinch the game on
On
Friday
Friday.
night. But he's good, and I don't know, they're healthy. Everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. I mean, all the big players and some of their guys that had terrible years last year. You don't have to do much. You gotta hold your own with your third and fourth lines out there, and then you send out the Ruski, and
Yeah.
he's the way he's playing, he's fantastic. Plus, it's hockey.
Yes.
It's 3-2, 2-1. All of
Yeah. Well,
everybody's the same, but I wrote this because I think we've all mentioned the fast start in 11-12 when Yo had the best record in the league,
yes.
and then they went completely in the tank. Unless somebody gets hurt, that's not going to happen with this
Mm-mm.
team. I think they're fairly legitimate. And Gustafson and
Yeah.
Flower, after being awful his first game, has been okay in a couple of games that he played. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
goaltending's been big. Goaltending's a big thing to me because they just were not great in the net last year, and they've been a
No,
lot better this year.
yeah, 11. Apparently, the kid's not playing that well down in Des Moines, so
No.
they're lucky that they kept the Flower, I guess. So anyway, 11 games in, and they're looking pretty good, and they fill that dang place every time they kick
Yes.
the doors open. It's in all of my years of sports writing, most loyal crowd we've ever had. It's
Yes.
incredible. It's incredible.
The crowd at Allianz got to celebrate a home playoff win the other night. Two wins on penalties, sending the Loons through. And I got a text from John Marthaler, a friend of mine who's been covering soccer for us, as you know. And he said, make sure to mention to Reusse that when they win this game, they won't play in the playoffs for 3 more weeks. It'll drive them nuts.
Why? Why is that? Why? What are we waiting for?
There
What are
must
we?
be there
I
must be
ran
some
into
other there must be some other international break or something. I haven't even bothered to look at why, but it must be something like that.
but I ran into one of the owners, a minority owner. I didn't know the guy, but
Okay.
he came over to me in the theater lobby yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and we talked, and I said, "Ah, you guys are making so much money, it doesn't make any difference, because I took a little cheap shot at
Right, right,
soccer."
right, right.
And he said, I hope we start making money or something like that. And then I said, if they go to winter spring, they're going to put you out of business. They can't be that stupid. I saw Marthaler had a story on
Yeah.
this, but they're gonna try to go to the European international model, and they can't do that. They can't do that here. You can't have no games in the summer, for goodness sakes. I mean, just exhibition games with Mexico or some damn thing.
No. Well,
It,
you'll
that
you'll freeze like 6 of your northern teams right out of this if you do that
yeah.
because it's not
I
comfortable.
mean,
You're not. Yeah.
the fans have been loyal. They come, they sing. They don't mind. They don't mind having a couple of November games. But
Right.
if that's your whole season, you're going to slowly lose your whole base. I would
Yeah.
think.
I don't
And
think
you
you
know
can.
what? The game I was at this year, there's a lot more 60 and 65-year-old people there than I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
There's a lot of adults who've gotten into, I mean, not older adults who've gotten into it, and they aren't showing up for December 18th games outside,
Or
for
or
goodness sakes.
January 26th.
Yeah, I mean, why they can't be that stupid. Stop giving them the days. If they, the international thing, you got to schedule your games. They don't let them all leave. Don't let them
Yeah.
all leave. You start. Who are you playing for? Us or them?
Yeah.
If you want to play for Czechoslovakia, go live in Czechoslovakia. I don't know. It's stupid to me why they let. And what do we care about playing Mexico Liga 3-4 games? So you got to take a 2-week break to play that stupid thing.
Yeah.
It's to me now. I'm not saying this as a guy who knows anything about soccer, but life was better when the kicks were here, right?
Well, it's just
You just played your season. You played from early April to September, and you had the same guys every year, so it was
yeah.
great.
I mean, the only benefit of being on everybody else's schedule is that you wouldn't have to take as many of these breaks, I don't think. I mean, as the league is now, it's like it never ends. Like
No,
whenever they're done with the playoffs, which, if they win in this next round, could go into, early December, it seems like training camp starts up again in like late January, I think. That's like
yes,
it's like a
right.
12-month season. It's ridiculous. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I don't get it. Yeah, whoever FIFA is, they're all powerful. They dictate, and they're all a bunch of crooks too. They take payoffs to put the World Cup and everything. They all show up, and I don't even think they try to hide the cash they're getting. They just
No.
come in and give it to them in a bag while they're voting. It's been like what they got from Qatar was
Yes.
ungodly. They're all a bunch of crooks, and I don't know. But if I'm Bill McGuire and the boys, I'm telling them, you can't do this. We
Yeah.
paid you all this money to be in your league. You can't do this. So
Yes, or at the very least, here's the part of the schedule where we can't have any home games, and it's a pretty large swath of December, January, and
yes, right.
February. It's
Yes.
like you,
So let's see if you play from. That would be interesting if you play from. So when would the season start here? Like
I,
in
I mean, if it starts
December or
when,
something?
yeah, well, if it starts when the Premier League schedule starts, it would probably start in, like it would probably like
December.
start like September.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can
So
say
you get a couple months, and then
you'd have to say we can. Okay, we can't play any games in December or January or February. So we'll have 22 games in the March. How about that?
well,
Everybody will come up. It's
and the other thing is you're competing with NFL, NBA,
yes.
NHL at that point if you're doing that, and then the
That's the
playoffs,
other very good point there, Randball. It's also you're competing with now is basically baseball, which
like
is
everything. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And the
So
WNBA, like you've kind of got you've at least
yeah,
got your niche. You fill a less robust part of the sports calendar right now with the
yes,
primary months of your season. So I don't know.
yes, yes. Well, anyway, go Loons, even if we're not going to get to see you play for another month. Now,
Yes.
what is it? If LA wins, then it did LA win already?
I think they play the Galaxy. I think we know that they play the Galaxy.
And why? This guy that I ran into told me that they if it's LA, they can't play for why can't they? Why don't they? I don't get it. Why they can't
I don't
play
know.
LA for three
I don't know.
weeks or
I
something?
don't know either. It's a mess. It's a
There can't
mess.
be another international break in
I
November, can
I don't
there?
think so. I don't know. I wish I knew. All I know is what I saw from John. He just texted that to me, and I was like, "All right, well, we'll bring it up."
Mhm.
Really
Yeah,
quick,
well,
really quick before we go. 3-3 Wolves. Not
hey, Mike,
worried yet, but they don't look great.
I was thinking this is just winners, just as we expected. The Wild being a machine and the Wolves being mediocre.
Yes.
I don't like what I'm seeing. I do not like what I'm
Yeah,
seeing.
they're not. The eye test
Right
isn't
now,
great right
Ant's
now.
taking 38 threes a game. That's his whole game now. He's making those. He is not going to be the face of the league. I'll tell you right now. And if he keeps playing like this, if this is his whole game, shooting threes, and Jaden McDaniel, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's
Yeah,
terrible. And
he's been a liability.
I don't. You're not using any bench. DiVincenzo hasn't been good yet. He looks like he's rushing everything to try to kind of keep up and make threes. And
I
I
like
don't
him though.
know.
I
The
think he's gonna be
plus,
he's gonna be
oh,
fine.
he's a good player. He's a good player. But but the West is tough. I
Oh
mean,
man,
The
yes,
West is tough. So you got to show up. I mean, right now, you're going to play Oklahoma City. They're going to beat you like a drum if you're playing like this. I mean, they're
yeah,
good.
yeah.
And there's not any off nights really
No,
that you just got the walkover game.
no. I mean, they get
And
Charlotte in their next game, so that's
yes,
they get some East teams that'll kind of give you a
yes.
reprieve. But yeah, you're right. The West, there's not much to catch your breath on this year.
Well, hopefully in 2 years we got teams in Vegas and Seattle, and we're in the East. So
That'd be nice.
that
Yeah,
would
I've
be
been clamoring for that for years. My friends always
yes.
make fun of me. They're like, "You've been beating that drum for about 10 years." So we'll
Well,
see. We'll see if they
it's
get there.
finally the time will come because I would think it would be either Memphis or us, but they probably want Memphis to stay in there to have somebody for New Orleans to play, and then the Texas teams, and so
Yeah.
geographically Memphis fits better than we
Yes.
do with the West. So hopefully the Timberwolves will be an East team in a couple of years. But right now, I mean, they got to get their. Yeah, it's what 6 games in, so it's
Yeah.
nothing to
3-3.
panic
It's not.
about.
It's not a panic. They just. I wish they looked a little bit better. Is what I would say. I
Yes,
want. I want them to look a little bit. I want them to
that's
look a little bit better, even if it's not. It's not been that bad. Is what I would say.
yes. Now they had the great start against Dallas the other night, but
Yeah.
when push came to shove, Kyrie Irving can still do anything he
Yeah.
wants to against them.
Yes.
Now he'll be hurt and miss 35 games, so that's we know that. And but how about big fat Luca? He just falls down and he looks like he's hurt and he's lumbering around and then he hits a 33-footer to
Yep.
win the game. Man,
Yep. It's classic
yeah,
Luca.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, as I said, there's just a lot of good teams in the
There are.
West. Yeah, you're gonna have to get their act together within, 10 more games. You
Yeah.
better start playing good
I
by
think so
the end
too.
of November or something.
They probably
So,
will. They probably will. They got enough talent.
all
All
right.
right,
See you
sir.
later.
Thank you for. Okay. Bye bye.